Tall, dark, and handsome. Oh, I'm sorry. We're not building my dream boyfriend. We're building your dream GM.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. I'm your host, Jess Belmosto, and joined by my partner in crime is Nick Zararis. Nick, how are you doing? How are you holding up?
Tired like everybody else.
That is the best answer because it's the truth. But thank you everyone for hanging out with us today on this fine Monday afternoon or evening, whenever you're listening. Make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Flames and really wherever you get your podcasts. And we are available on YouTube. And this is like the perfect time to subscribe to our YouTube channel because we need your feedback. We need to hear your thoughts on this candidate bachelor GM
this process.
Episode. Yeah, we need to hear all about it because we need you. And yeah, so let's jump right into it.
So, the Flames have not been outward. They haven't said, hey, we're interviewing these people. I listened to the Monday edition of 32 Thoughts this morning, and Elliot Friedman said that the Flames had talked to candidates that do have NHL experience as GMs and candidates that don't have NHL experience as GMs. So that means they've talked to multiple candidates already. They haven't been able to talk to some of the more what's the word I'm looking for? Some of the more interesting names that are out there that are still with teams in the playoffs, like Eric Tulskey of Carolina or Jason Botterill of Seattle. They won't be able to talk to those guys until their teams are eliminated from the playoffs. Right now, Seattle has a lead in their series, and right now Carolina has a lead in their series. So that might be a little while before they can talk to them. I know that's been an issue in the past for some teams where they would like to talk to and maybe hire guys from other organizations, but the longer you wait, the fewer candidates are going to be available. There aren't a lot of open GM jobs. The only ones that still might become open is in Toronto, and that's under the assumption that the Leafs don't come back from 3-0 down, which they probably won't. But Kyle's contract is up anyway, so he might be looking to move on without he doesn't need to be fired. The Leafs can just let his contract expire. Effectively the same thing, but for appearances wise, he would be leaving of his own accord. He's been linked to Pittsburgh the most of everyone of the teams looking for a GM. He's been linked to Pittsburgh the most because Pittsburgh wants to kind of fundamentally realign their front office the way it's set up, and the idea would be to give Kyle kind of carte blanche to do what he wants to set up the Penguins front office, whether it be a dual structure where you have a president and a GM, kind of what they had before where they were equal and then they talked above, or president above, whatever. But for the purposes of this conversation, we don't know who the Flames are talking to. We don't know who they would even like to talk to because they're not announcing it. I know we discussed this last week. Would they be transparent about, hey, this is who we've talked to, this is who we haven't? So far, it seems we're not going to know until we get closer to a decision, or until they have to request permission to talk to guys who are with other organizations, because then you have another party to the invitation, and that's where you can have things get leaked based on, who a third party makes it a lot easier for information to get leaked. But yeah, so far we don't know a lot as far as who they're looking at.
No, and I think that the situation over the weekend where I think it was Elliot who said, the Flames have talked to or shown interest in Stan Bowman. I really don't want to believe that that's a thing, mainly because of the issues they had with Bill Peters. But kind of like the Joel Quenneville thing with him being linked to New York, it could also have just been like a test on have people kind of moved
checking
on?
The water. Trying to gauge the reaction. The way I understood it, based on what they said on 32 Thoughts this morning, as far as Quenneville, which I assume it would apply to a Bowman as well, is there was conjecture about Quenneville and the Rangers, but from the way I understand it, there may be a re-entry process for both Bowman and Quenneville to come back into the league, but based on what Elliott and Merrick had heard, that would not happen fast enough for Quenneville to take the Rangers job for this upcoming season. That's not to say neither will never get a chance again in hockey, but as far as this upcoming summer, I think if Quenneville is out for that reason, I think it's reasonably safe to assume Bowman would be extended the same ruling of you might want him, but if we're going to let him back in, there's more he has to do before we're willing to let him back in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, good on the NHL for
bare minimum.
Again.
The bar is in absolute hell when it comes to the NHL and managements of ethics and conduct, but at least we've set the bar in hell. You can't go lower than hell.
I mean, this league would absolutely find a way to do that.
Oh, no. I imagine both guys will get another chance. It might be first as a consultant or like an auxiliary type thing, but both guys would Joe Quenneville had to be told to resign. He thought he was going to keep the Panthers job last year. Bowman kind of knew he was screwed and resigned, but Quenneville didn't think he needed to resign. So
was going about his job as if nothing in this world
he
was
didn't
happening.
He didn't think he did anything wrong, and that's why I'm of the opinion he shouldn't get another opportunity, because even if he does the lip service, whatever you want to call it, workshop, seminar, whatever, it's lip service.
Training.
It's lip service, because that guy was 51 years old when that happened in 2010. If at that point in your life you have your value system, there is no changing that at 60 years old, which is what he is now. So 10, 12 years after the fact, there's no changing that. So kudos to the NHL for doing the bare minimum. I'm hoping that this is just out there because people have jobs to do. There are agents floating names out there to kind of let. That's my assumption, is that these names were floated out there. The insiders need things to report. That's my assumption as far as why Bowman and Quenneville's names are out there. But I'm glad the Rangers the Rangers either got rebuffed or realized, hey, this is a bad idea. And I imagine that the Flames will come to a similar decision, whether or not they actually make a direct overture to the league and be like, hey, can we talk to him or not? I think what was reported about the Quenneville thing with New York kind of tells you, hey, let's not even bother wasting our time with this.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what this organization needs to do, especially if they want to take some steps forward and, go in a positive direction that, it kind of feels like a 180 from where they were fundamentally, at least. And coming up next, we're going to talk more about that and, of course, what makes a good general manager. But before we do that, we are going to take a quick break, and I'm going to tell you about our friends at Indeed. There is no I in team, but there is one in Indeed, and that's the hiring platform you need to build yours. And when you're hiring, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. NHL front office people, hello, this is perfect opportunity for you right here. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed's powerful hiring platform can do it all for you. They are the one-stop shop, and they streamline hiring with powerful tools to find you matched candidates. And with Indeed, you can start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/lockedon. Offer is good for a limited time, and claim your $75 credit now at Indeed.com/lockedon. Again, that is Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. And thank you, everyone, for hanging out with us today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're following us, because we're here for you every day. It's free to subscribe, and we're happy to have you here. What is the next step?
So, generally speaking, your GM is probably the most important non-player in your organization, because the effect a coach has on the team is very limited in comparison to what a coach or a manager does in, say, football, soccer, baseball, basketball. Their direct impact on the results is very marginal.
Mm-hmm.
The NHL is a GM centric sport. Because so much of how your team plays is going to come down to your roster construction. You can be a very good coach, but if you don't have players that are capable of playing the system you want to play, you're going to have a harder time. It's not like football where as a game goes on, you can notice mismatches, you can notice trends and really start to kind of pick apart at what the other team is doing. Hockey is kind of similar to soccer in the respect that typically when you're not playing well, you're not executing, you don't have an alternate game plan. There's not like we're not running the ball well, let's try and go outside more, let's try and pass more to open up the run. In hockey and in soccer, your coach, your manager is going to be more inclined to say, hey, let's get back to what we do. We're not shipping the puck in deep. Let's get to that. And you'll hear coaches say that all the time. I don't like the way we played. We didn't play the way I want us to play. And that kind of speaks to that looking back, that recircling. It's not so much that we're not playing well. It's that we're not executing the system. So your GM has to design a roster and pick the coach that's going to have a good matchup. You're going to have synchronimity. That's not a word. I made that up. That's entirely not a word. You want to have alignment, agreement. We'll go with agreement. Yeah. That's a simple
Everyone word. Needs to be on the same page.
Yes, exactly. That's what you need here, because your GM is going to pick the coach in this case, because the Flames have said that. They said we're going to hire the GM first, and then the GM is going to be part of the process of picking the coach. That's good process. So what is the job specific to the Flames? The Flames very clearly want to be competitive. So the goal then is to find a GM who's going to be able to leverage that. You're going to want somebody who's capable of reading the guys they have in-house right now well. And what I mean by that is knowing when to walk away from a guy, even if it's a year too early, as opposed to a year too late, 2 years too late. Because in hockey, that typically means you've given them that unrestricted free agent contract that they get at 27 or 28. And maybe the first 2 years of that deal age fine, and they're good up till 30. But we know historically that the vast majority of production, statistical production, and when I say that, I mean like counting stats, goals and assists, peaks at 30 years old. Then you get your decline. Production in terms of the underlying numbers like WAR, that's typically that second restricted free agent contract from 24 to about 26, 27, up until UFA. So your last RFA contract is typically the peak of your WAR value, because that's typically when you're at your peak athletic form and you're able to contribute the most defensively as well as offensively, which won't bear out into counting stats, but typically you get further up in the lineup the older you are, and the more value you bring, the higher up you play in the lineup, the more opportunities you have to produce counting stats, the more opportunities you get to play power play. That'll help your counting stats as well. So you got to be able to really read the value that guys are going to bring to your team. And it's the hardest part of doing the GM job well, because there isn't always a right answer, because you don't know. You can give a contract to a guy based on what they've done up to that point. But say you're going to give Elias Lindholm that next big extension when he's eligible in a year and a half. How many years are you going to do? You're going to want the max, right? You're going to want the 8-year max. Yeah. Then what's the number going to look like? Is that number going to start with a 1 because it's going to be over 10? Is it going to be 8? Is it going to be 9? And how is that going to age? Are we going to be out of the flat cap by then? Are we going to have a new TV deal that's going to boon what the hockey-related revenue is and expand the salary cap? Yeah, exactly. These are all interconnected, and it's what makes the job so difficult, because your value today might be very different from your value to the team in 2 or 3 years. The Flames can look radically different 2 years from now. Maybe it makes sense to give Lindholm that extension now, but a year or two from now, you could all be looking around at each other and go, wow, we really misread this. And you'll be in a situation kind of like what the Jets are in right now, where you have a lot of older guys that are towards the end of their primes, and there's not really any real clarity about the direction the team wants to go in. Everyone is disgruntled, and you don't want to get there. So the last point I want to make before I give you an opportunity to speak, because I've been speaking for like 4 minutes straight now. I haven't. Granted, I did record a podcast earlier today, but for the most part, I've been in silence all day today. So this is also socialization. Like I've been in solitary for a little while. So the last point I want to make on this is just you need to have alignment between the coach and the GM. And it's really important specifically for the Flames because you're going to start incorporating some of these younger guys into roles. And you saw that was a real inflection point for the team this past season. You saw what Huberdeau said about what happened with Peltier during the season. You've seen the kind of unanimous exhale from everybody on the team that Daryl's gone now, because you saw the young guys, when they were given opportunities, that had a positive effect on the veteran guys. You saw Peltier jumping on guys and everybody kind of be like, all right, this kid's funny. We appreciate his energy. He's trying. And that type of thing is important because if you want to incorporate those guys, you're not stuck with those guys. And that's kind of the mistake a lot of coaches have when it comes to younger talent is they treat them like they're stuck with them, that they have to play them. And whatever they get is a bonus on top of what they get from their established guys already. Yeah. Gerard Gallant did this. David Quinn did this. Peter Laviolette did this. I could go down the list. Every single Daryl Sutter does this, where they treat the development of the roster players on the NHL roster as a burden, as that's not my job. This is the NHL. We're not here to develop. When very clearly you can do both. The best coaches do both because you can continue to refine talent. You think about Carter Verhaeghe on the Panthers right now, where he is now in relation to where he is now, where, yeah, the talent has always been there, but he needed an opportunity and he needed a specific type of opportunity, which is another component of this. Are you asking guys to do what they're good at? That's really been my real sticking point for a coach. And we'll talk more about the coach once we know who the GM is going to be. But my real sticking point is, are you asking guys to do stuff that they're good at? You can have the best system schematically possible. The limitations of scheme, they're dependent on it working and being able to be executed. If you don't have guys with the skill sets to play your scheme, I don't care how good your scheme is. If you're not going to be able to do the best with the guys you have, you're being stubborn. You're not giving them the best opportunity to succeed, and you're naturally going to limit yourself. So that's really kind of my sticking point as far as GM coach alignment, maximizing the young guys, because that's where the Flames are going to be able to add value to their roster, is underdeveloped, younger, inexpensive players, because for the most part, they're expensive guys they've got for a few more years. So you have to play them. But to maximize them, to make their lives easier, you're going to need young guys to be able to come into the lineup. And I'm not saying carry the load, but be good supporting pieces. Yeah. Don't treat them as afterthoughts. And that's what's frustrating about Peltier specifically this year was the Flames fumbling a playoff spot, long-term thing. Like that started in mid-February and it really ballooned throughout. Right. But the mindset Daryl should have had was, we're really in a rut. What can I do to change things up? Bringing new guys into your lineup is the most obvious solution you have to, we're in a rut. How can I change up the energy? How can I get the guys who either aren't playing well or don't have their confidence? How can I get them going? Well, experiment. Give them opportunities with different guys. Bring in somebody who hasn't been with the team all year. Maybe he can have some infectious energy that can spread. Hockey is a very morale and mindset-centric sport where if you're not thinking right, it doesn't matter how talented you are, you're going to have a harder time. So it's really important that if the GM has guys on the roster, like Peltier, Wolf, Phillips, Kyle Chillington, assuming he comes back, that they're not treated as afterthoughts. They are they don't have to be focal points. They don't have to carry the load, but make the work easier for the guys that are already here. That is how you should be thinking of these supplementary pieces that these young guys are going to be and continue to be, because that is the key to maintaining success over a long period of time, is being able to integrate young guys 1-2 at a time into your lineup and then knowing when it's time to walk away. You think about the guys the Penguins have incorporated over the years, whether it be Rust, Gensel, etc. You think about the Lightning over the years, where they've had some internal guys be able to be promoted up into their lineup. And then they were said, okay, we can't afford to keep you. It's time for us to move on from you, Andre Palat. You're a good hockey player, but we're confident in our ability to identify somebody who's played a smaller role in another organization, nurse them up, build them up, get them to where we feel comfortable, and then no hard feelings. You're a really good professional. We appreciate everything you've done for us, but we need to get cheaper. These young guys, they need the opportunity. So knowing when to walk away, it's really the key to success in today's NHL.
Yeah, absolutely. And Just to add quickly, I would love to see Backlund sitting in on, via Zoom from whatever tropical island he's on, because it truly sounds like he was done very dirty by Daryl Sutter and the organization. Go listen to Mackenzie Weegar's interview on Missing Curfew. I listened to like a clip of it during my lunch break, and my goodness, what a mess. What a mess. And I like that he was the first one to say, yeah, I will be the first one to own it and say it out loud. And just thank you, because someone had to be that guy. And coming up next, we are going to talk about what makes a good GM in 2023 and how times have changed. And before we do that, we are going to power through that with a little snack, a delicious snack called Built Bars. I'm sure if you've listened to the show, you've heard about them. You might have even tried them. Or if you're new, hi, hello, 17 grams of protein, 130 calorie, and low sugar and carbs, all jam-packed into a delicious tasting protein bar that is covered in 100% real chocolate that come in just a handful of different flavors. It's a great variety, and they have unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and cookies and cream. You can get them online right at built.com, or you can head to the nearest Walmart today and walk to the pharmacy section and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or a coconut puff. And if you are near Sam's Club, you can also run in and grab a 13-bar box with the hit flavors Brownie Batter Puff and Churro Puff. And you guys can thank me later. There's a million different ways you can enjoy these. Freezing them is one of my personal favorites, and make a nice little snack in between life, because sometimes you're just on the go all the time. And thank you, everyone, for hanging out with us on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're following us on Twitter at Jess Belmosto and at Nick Zeraris. What should be the top quality?
Somebody who's not reactionary. That, I think, is the most important trait when it comes to a general manager, is somebody who's got a plan A, B, C, not somebody who's constantly running from fire to put things out. You want to be ahead of your problem before it develops. So I think a general manager's most important personality trait needs to be a people person. They need to be able to. You don't even need to be a schmoozer. I'm trying to think of how did I write it down? I wrote it down as you need to be good at people management. I think that's the most important way I would describe it. You want these guys to be excited to come to work every day. That you want the guys on the team to feel like they're in the best environment possible, because that is an intangible thing that no matter how the result is going on the ice, if the guys are happy to come to work, they enjoy the guys who they're on the team with. That's at least a baseline starting point for everybody's mindset of, okay, we lost yesterday, but we're going to get back there. We know we can work on this. I know it's going to be productive. I don't feel like I'm wasting my time. Everybody's been in a workplace where they have a supervisor who's and everybody's looking at each other during the meeting while they're doing and if you're listening and not watching on YouTube, I'm making a mouth moving motion with my right hand. That everybody's been in that kind of meeting where, is this person ever going to stop talking? We know we're not doing well. Can we please, knowing how to read the room? And that's really my key for a general manager, is knowing how to keep in front of as much as you possibly can. Yeah. You don't want to be, oh, we lost a playoff series. Well, why did we lose? Well, we're not tough enough. Okay, I'm going to go trade for a third liner. I'm going to go trade for a face puncher. I'm going to go trade for a defenseman who's 6'4". You want to be, okay, we go into a season with the best possible version of our roster. Okay, as the season goes along, what do we need? More scoring? Okay, these are our assets in-house. How can we get ahead of this? That's really how you should try and run this stuff, because if you are only making decisions based on losing, bad results, then you're going to only be solving a problem to that specific instance. But nothing happens for just one reason, which is why being reactionary is so troubling and difficult as a general manager. You might have lost that one series for that reason. Yeah. You change your roster, you come back next year, You lose again. Oh, we have to change this. And then very quickly, you've turned over half your roster in 2 or 3 seasons, and you don't have any real foundational guys. You don't have guys who are comfortable with each other because, oh, I'm not useful anymore. They're going to get rid of me at the earliest convenience. You end up like Vegas, where you have guys who are being like, oh, am I going to get traded if we lose this series?
Right.
And that lingers on everybody's mind too. So mastering that kind, and there is no like sixth sense, there's no Spider-Man ability to kind of know, hey, walk away from this guy now, move on from this guy now, or keep this guy. That's something that you really only have a gut feeling on. Sure, you can look at similar players and how they've aged, how they've developed, but there's no one-to-one player management, player development. It's not linear. There's no, you do A, you get B, you do C, you get D. It's A, D, C, F, H, and it's really difficult to manage all of that. The GM job in particular is so many things folded into one, and it's why I feel it's so important, because the average NHL GM gets 5.5 years as their GM. They usually get to hire 2 coaches. So the Flames are bringing in both. Both jobs are open for the Flames organization for the first time since 2000, I was reading earlier today. So it's been a while since they've had a chance at a real organizational reset. As such a veteran-laden team, I think environment is almost that the culture, the environment you're going to bring these guys into was a clear issue. You saw last year that the culture and the environment was toxic, that guys didn't want to be here. That the several Flames players rescind trade request news article notification was hysterical. Like I audibly snorted. I hit the and I felt it in my chest, because that's everybody. If everybody on the outside looking in can go, oh, this isn't working. And I get it. Brad went to the Met. Brad did us all a solid by saying, I can't do this anymore. He's your problem. And then everybody on the team being like, he's the problem. And then Maloney went to the owner and be like, we can't keep that. We can't.
We're going to have no organization. No one is showing up to camp. No one is going to talk.
Everybody is going to be counting down the minutes to free agency if we keep Darryl here. We can't do that. So your GM, first order of business, you need to find your soulmate as a coach. Yep. You need to find somebody you are going to have the best chemistry possible with, because ideally that is a collaborative relationship. It's the coach and GM in perfect sync, knowing, hey, our roster is lacking this. What can you do to get us more of this?
Yeah.
And the GM feeling, okay, I know we're lacking in this area. What can I take away from that's not going to mess up anything else while still improving on what we already had? Is it draft picks? Is it prospects? Is it a 1-for-1 thing? And determining that value at a paper level is easy. I can look at I can go on I can go on Cap Friendly. I can look at 2 teams and say, okay, this guy and this guy, they make comparable amounts of money. They have different skill sets. Both teams could use the other guy. Knowing how those 2 guys are going to actually impact the teams in terms of the personalities, the mindset, the culture, that's where the GM's job comes in, and why it's so difficult, and why I joke I wouldn't be the worst GM. I wouldn't be. Chuck Fletcher is an atrocity. Danny Briere is going to get that job. I know he's still got the interim tag, but yeah. I don't envy some of the decisions that GMs are going to have to make this summer. There are some really difficult. Don Sweeney is going to have himself a very difficult summer.
He sure is. I'm certainly looking forward to it. I don't know if you saw, but last night there was, I don't buy into it too heavily, but apparently the Bruins are interested in Elias Lindholm, whether that be trading for him this year or going after him next summer. So
the Bruins will have a little more flexibility next summer as opposed to right now. Obviously, you can't make any decisions till you know about Krejci and Bergeron, but yeah, a lot of things to manage. And one last thing I want to throw in here. You got to be accountable as a general manager. Please. It is my biggest pet peeve when general managers either A, talk to the media once a season, or B, deflect the blame. Because at some point, it's your fault. And I know nobody wants to take blame and put their hand up and say, hey, I messed up. It's my fault the team didn't play well. I thought this would work, but it didn't work because why? I know that's kind of taboo. You don't admit that as a GM because you have to be convincing everybody around you at all times that you're infallible. Otherwise, very quickly, you have a groundswell on your hands and everybody's looking around. Why is that guy making the decision? So yeah, accountability really does matter to me.
You can't make the coach your scapegoat either.
You can't
interrupt.
No, yeah, absolutely. It's important. That relationship is really important. And I understand sometimes coaches wear out their welcome and they can do good things even if it doesn't result in a championship.
Yeah.
But knowing when to walk away, it's important. And hell, and we'll wrap up because we're already up against the clock here. But it came up with Daryl that Brad wanted to fire him in season. It came up today that the Rangers wanted to fire Gallant in season and they kept him the rest of the season and the playoffs ended this way. So knowing when to walk away from your coach, it does matter. And it's a hard it is a fine line to walk, but that's why you're a GM. You are one of the 32. You convince them to take the job, make the hard decision.
You convinced them to hire you?
Yes.
You can probably convince them to make a little bit more difficult decision. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't know. I'm immediately ineligible because I am a reactionary person. I tried to be like the general manager, whatever, on NHL, and my team draft lottery year after year. We won the cup and then we won the draft lottery. So you're welcome, everyone. Anything else before we wrap up?
We'll talk about it after we're done recording because that newsworthy events happened over the weekend. Newsworthy events happened over the weekend.
Be like Taylor Swift and don't Google herself, okay? Just don't Google her. Save your mental health. Instead, just subscribe to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts. 5-star rating, a nice little review, and of course, tell us how would you build a perfect general manager and how would you build a coach? And I'll see you tomorrow.